Welcome to another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Garcia. And today we're going to be joined by our usual suspects. We're going to be joined by our close friends, Jonas Clark and Benjamin Bornstein of Project Spurs. Gentlemen, we are actually going to be talking about, yes, dare I say this, we're not in fantasy land. We're not stuck somewhere in a movie like a Twilight Zone or, any of those bizarro worlds. This is us talking about a Spurs win. Can you believe that? I said that, a Spurs win. How does that sound to you, Ben?
Unfamiliar is how it sounds to me, but also pretty great.
Right? You're confused. You don't know how to feel, man.
I'm stuck in a glass case of emotions.
Right? I think we
I
all
don't know
are.
what to do with my hands.
Jonas, how are you feeling about this? We're talking about a Spurs win. The Spurs won against the Los Angeles Clippers. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I think that more than just a win, Joe. I didn't get to watch it live last night. I had other things going on, so I DVR'd it. I watched it this morning, and I said earlier, hands down, the most complete game of basketball, best all-around game we've seen all year. Arguably over anything we saw last year, because the defense was there. They handled a very talented roster really well. And, dude, we could hit three balls. Did you guys know that the three exists in basketball and we're allowed to take those shots? It was great.
It was great, and we saw that DeMar DeRozan is capable of
Oh,
knocking
man.
down a three here and there. He knocked down one. I'd like to see him try at least once a game, at least twice a game. If you're open and you got a three-point attempt, take it, bud. We could use that productivity out of you. I like that he took the attempt to make the 1-3 and he sunk it. That kind of helped the Spurs team get energized a little bit. It got the guys excited. They're like, oh, I'm gonna say it. They were like, oh shit, Demar hit a three. It's gonna
You
be that
gotta, you
kind of
gotta try
night.
and keep the defense honest.
Yeah, exactly. If
I
he
lost it when I saw it. It was awesome.
yeah, like if he was able to hit a three consistently, and he hasn't been able to do that all season. I'd like to see him bring
For
that
his
to the plate.
career.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of helps spread the opposing team's defense a little bit more, and it gives him another added weapon, to his arsenal. So he's just not so one dimensional, because when teams are elite defenses are trying to scheme against him, uh, the elite defense knows that he's not going to usually shoot a three, so it kind of makes him a one-trick pony. But if he was able to do this a little bit more consistently, that could make him elevate his game that much more, and make the Spurs that much more better and not so predictable. They could actually be somewhat of a threat from beyond the arc. Of course they're not going to be like in years past where they had this prolific, 3-point shooters from beyond the arc, but it can keep the opposing defenses honest and, kind of spread that defense a little bit more and open the lanes, for other people like LaMarcus or Jakob Portal, or, you got a cutter like Patty Mills or Bryn Forbes, DeJounte, Derek White, to possibly get some uncontested easy shots, to the rim and possibly even go to the stripe, so you like some of the things you saw out of the Spurs last night, but we'll go ahead and pitch it to you, Ben. Ben, what actually stood out at you as far as this win, more beyond the just them playing defense? I mean, what actually stood out at you for this for this team for the full four quarters and throughout the game?
I mean, it was first of all, DeMar DeRozan is going to start taking more threes because he's got to impress the Magic. Just throwing that out there. Um, but to me, it really was the defense. It was not just a general sense of defense, whatever. Anybody can say that, but they kept their top three scorers highly inefficient this game. Paul George went 2 of 11. Kawhi Leonard went 8 of 23. Lou Williams went 2 of 10. Those are the three best scorers, and they shot terribly because of the defense that the Spurs played on them. That if those guys can't get going, the rest of this team struggles, and you see that in some of these numbers. Patrick Beverley ended up going 3 for 9. Now, granted, he's not a very good shooter anyway, but that didn't help their case. And, Maurice Harkless and Ivica Zubac both went 3 of 5. So they shot okay, but again, they only shot the ball 5 times. I mean, Montrezl Harrell is their guy off the bench. He probably had their best game. He went 6 of 12 and had 12 points on the night, 7 rebounds and a block. He was probably their best player that night. And when Montrezl Harrell is your best player in a game, you are in trouble. And so I thought the way the Spurs really attacked those main scorers on defense for the Clippers was huge. And I think if they can continue to pay close attention to detail like that, if they can take certain guys out of rhythm over the course of a game, you can really mess with them and screw up the rest of the team's shooting, because you end up with Lou Williams taking a lot of shots that aren't necessarily good for him. Now, he's going to take a lot of shots anyway because that's what he does. But, if you have Montrezl Harrell taking 12 shots a game for you, and you have guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Lou Williams that are playing ahead of him, that is not good for your team. So I think the attention to detail in this game on defense was huge for me. That's what I really like about it. And, obviously hitting shots is always going to help you. The Spurs have just, the beginning of this season, they've just struggled to hit shots. But this game, they probably had their best 3-point shooting night of the season. I think they shot they shot almost 39% from 3. And, they struggled from the field a little bit. They shot 43% from the field. That's okay. But, I mean, the way they held the Clippers shooting, I mean, the Clippers shot 39% overall from the field, which kind of negates the fact that they shot 36% from 3. So, again, attention to detail, taking people out of rhythm, that has to become a norm for the Spurs team if they want to take the momentum into more W's throughout the season.
Yeah, most definitely. Most notably, the Spurs were able to keep the Deuce in check for most of the game. I mean, he usually goes for, I think he's averaging somewhere around the neighborhood of 25.6 or 25.7 points per game. They were able to keep him under his average. He only had 19 points for the game and seemed at times visibly frustrated. I don't know if it's just the return home or the crowd gets to him or playing in this building does something to his psyche, but the Deuce was not quite himself, so that was a plus for the Spurs. And not only that, but Doc Rivers even alluded that, the team might have just been a little bit lethargic. They might have been tired, but it happens, and then he's like, oh, but, let's give credit to the Spurs defense. They played great defense, and that kind of, hampered what we wanted to do out there. No, it did hamper what you all wanted to do out there. And the Spurs brought it, and they took it to you guys defensively and took you guys out of your defensive scheme, and the defensive scheme was, hey, we're going to stop the Spurs. They can't shoot the 3. And lo and behold, the Spurs were able to shoot 3s and get things going. And I got to add one thing before I pitch it to Jonas so he can elaborate a little bit more on this. I like the actual fluidity or the movement to the offense. People weren't standing around beyond the arc anymore. People were actually setting picks. They were setting screens. People were moving. They were moving without the ball. They were keeping the defense, running after them for most of the night. They were spreading the defense. They were helping create open lanes. They were better with their passing. This looked like a renewed team. It looked like a stereotypical Spurs team out there, something that we hadn't seen until yesterday's game. So, Jonas, we just told you a little bit about what we saw and what we thought about the game. What were your highlights? I mean, what did you see out there?
Well, Joe, just coming out of what you put out there, 100% right. Ball movement was great. Creating space and allowing shots to the rim. Not standing behind the perimeter, just waiting for that 3-point shot. But I want to say to a point with that is I felt there was times where they passed too much.
Yeah.
There were, especially early on the game, it was almost like they were hesitant to take a shot. Always just trying to move, and nobody. And then you're down with two seconds left on the shot clock, and you have to put up a bad shot because you pass the ball 15 times.
Somebody take the damn shot. Somebody take the damn shot.
Exactly. At some point, somebody's got to put up the rock. But I want to look at 3 numbers, guys, that really stood out to me, that were all wins for the Spurs. 9 turnovers, to pace us under the Clippers 14. I thought that was rather key. 9 for the whole game. That's something that you can definitely see is trending in the right direction over the last couple weeks, where we're not turning it over 15, 20 times. We're really starting to cut back on that. 8 steals. That speaks to the defense that you guys are both talking about. I think that obviously hands getting in the way. And a couple of those, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but DeMar had a couple of those tips. He played hyper aggressive. He was just a whole other DeMar than we've seen to this point this year. But probably my favorite stat from the night, guys. 8 blocks. 8 blocks. My man Blockapurtle was doing his job. I just love how aggressive he plays. For me, he wouldn't have gotten the game ball if Derek White wouldn't have had such an amazing performance. He's going to get my game ball just because he's taken over that starting point guard spot from DeJounte, which I didn't really think was going to happen all last year. We have this, just wait till DeJounte gets back. Wait till DeJounte gets back. DeJounte gets back. I've said it multiple times. We've talked about it on here, guys, where it looks like he's trying to do too much. He was out there in garbage time last night and just trying to find his shot and still couldn't quite find it. I think he missed about 3 shots in the final minutes. When he was out there with Lonnie Walker in the final 60 seconds and Drew Eubanks. But the blocks, LaMarcus looked aggressive last night, and Jakob Poeltl is looking better and better from that Toronto deal every day, and that's what stuck out to me. Just hyper aggressive, but Derek White with the game ball, Jakob Poeltl right behind him, because if you're gonna stop teams from scoring, it starts at the rim, and they did that last night.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out one thing to Ben, too. LaMarcus Aldridge, Ben, he had 17 points on the night. That was a team high. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, it took him 13 shots to get there, and
that's efficient for him. Right? That was efficient for him.
For him.
He needs his touches, remember?
But 5 of 13, okay. But he did have the 4 blocks, he had a steal. To Jonas's point, DeMar DeRozan was credited with 3 steals.
Nice.
He probably, like you said, he probably had more tips, but he was credited with 3 steals.
And he had Kawhi for a good chunk of the night too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and your boy Jakob Poeltl, he had half of the team's blocks. He had 4.
Yeah, and LaMarcus had the other half. It was kind of nice, actually. Yeah. Look at LaMarcus Aldridge getting up for a big game.
For real, you know what? I don't know what it is, but he got up for this game. Usually he doesn't, so I wonder if he heard people calling him out, saying how soft he's been playing for most of the year. So I don't know, man. What do you think? You think your boy's going to turn a corner, or he's only going to be good every 4 games, every 5 games, going to have a game like this?
I was going to say you'll get a game out of him. He'll come in at an opportune time and say, you know what, this is my time to shine. I'm gonna really have a good game this game, so people can get off my back for a little while. Give me 2 weeks of rest here, or 2 weeks of people not bothering me. We'll be good to go.
Yeah. So you didn't have to get your Rotten Tomatoes for LaMarcus after yesterday's game, Ben. So
not yet.
You can save those. Let them ferment a little bit longer.
There you go. Get them real stanky.
Yeah, the Spurs bench was very productive last night. I think for their total for the night, they were at 40 points. So the Spurs bench was quite productive, but so was the Clippers bench. I think the Clippers bench kind of matched the Spurs as far as their production too. I believe they were somewhere in the neighborhood of their bench scoring 40 points as well during the game. So it was a pretty even contribution from both teams' benches. The thing is with the Spurs that they did play a little bit better, down the stretch than they normally have. Specifically, Jonas, that third quarter. Remember how we've all talked about that? I remember I've even told you, Ben, third quarters have been the Spurs' Achilles heel all season. And lo and behold, they actually had a decent third quarter. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing when the fourth quarter came and they didn't let the Clippers go on a big run. You know, we didn't have a 15-0 run. We didn't have an 18-0 run or something outrageous where it changes the complexion of the game and the Spurs go behind after sustaining the lead and they just can't get back into the game. They actually locked down and were able to close out a very good Clippers team. To me, that all speaks that, you know, hey, the team maybe got tired of losing and actually grew a pair and decided to, you know what, I had enough. So, I mean, is this going to be a pivotal game? Is this a turning point for the team for the season? Or is it just a one-off and should we expect mediocrity from here on out? And neither one of you guys can answer that question. Jump
Well, I
in.
think so. I will say that I think it should help them. It should help them get some momentum going into some games. I mean, their next game is at Detroit. That is a very winnable game. Detroit is probably a lower seed in the Eastern Conference right now, but your biggest issue is they come home 2 days later and they play Houston.
No.
So I think if they can carry momentum, get a winning streak, and beat the Pistons, you're on a 2-game winning streak. You have Houston at home. You're feeling confident about yourself. Kind of saying to yourself, you know, we're playing defense. We're doing everything we're supposed to do. We've really got it. We've got our things together. You know, we can take on Houston. Let's do this. Let's get James Harden and Russell Westbrook to travel all over the place because they do it and never get called. But I'm not salty about it at all. So I think those 2 games are going to kind of be barometers of what you can really expect from the Spurs team. Like, are they really going to turn this corner, or are they going to kind of go back into being just an okay team, just a mediocre team? And I think they should beat Detroit no matter what, regardless of really what people are thinking. But I think the Houston game is really going to tell us how good or how not good this team is going to be.
Yeah, what about you, Jonas? Do you think that this win against the Clippers is going to be a crucial, you know, turning point for the Spurs? Do you think they're going to use the momentum to carry them and start stringing together some wins, or is this just a one-off and from the rest of the way we're going to expect mediocrity, meaning they'll win 1, drop 1, win 2, maybe drop another 5? I mean, what are your expectations?
Well, I don't think that it really made much of a difference, to be honest. To me, it was just another example of the Spurs playing to the level of the competition, and they got the win this time. We've had a lot of close games. I think all but 4 have been decided by 10 or less this season, and except for maybe 5 games now. But kind of like LaMarcus, they show up for big games when they need to, and then they kind of disappear. We played really good opponents really well. We played really bad opponents really bad this year. So,
yeah. And don't forget, this was the first time this year, Jonas, that they've held a team to under 100 points.
That's a very great note there, especially when you look at the firepower on the Clippers. But I don't think that you're going to see the Rockets score less than 100. I don't think that you're going to see the Kings score less than 100. The real pivotal point for me, and I brought this up a couple weeks ago, it's still that little 3-game homestand, guys, because there's a lot of days off. You got the Rockets on the 3rd at home. You're staying home. You don't play again until Friday against the Kings. Then you don't play again until Thursday against the Cavaliers. This is the turning point for this season because you get to go to the practice courts and you get to really work on what hasn't been working to this point so far. You get to actually break down the film without having an opponent for the next couple of nights and work on the team chemistry and just overall shooting and resting. I think that's going to be a key part of this too. Is having a little bit of time off because it has been a grind to this point. We've gone up against some very good teams, and the fact that we've lost so much can be tolling on this roster, and especially among all the trade rumors. So yeah. I would look for after this little homestand here. It's going to take us halfway through December. And at that point, if we go on and we go lose to Phoenix, then guys, the season is done. Because
Oh my
you
God.
you can't come off of that stretch of 3 games in 10 days at home, sleeping in your own bed, going to practice every day, and then turn around and lose off of that homestand against the Suns on the road. You just can't do that. So this is going to be that pivotal point. I don't think it was last night. I think it's still a couple days away.
And I'm going to go ahead and talk to you now, Ben. Ben, one of the things that stood out to me in yesterday's game was the lineup that Coach Pop went with. I thought the starting 5 that he went with gave the Spurs some much needed defense. And not only that, it was well balanced as far as what they were able to do defensively and also what they were able to do offensively out there on the court. And the starters that I'm talking about as the lineup yesterday was Rudy Gay, LaMarcus Aldridge, Derek White, Bryn Forbes, and DeMar DeRozan. Do you think that this lineup is something that he should go to for the rest of the season, or you think he's going to revert back to the same old starting 5 that didn't really get us where we needed to be defensively?
I don't know if he'll stick it out with this starting 5. This might have been a one-off, but I do think seeing this starting 5 could give this staff and Coach Pop some ideas on some other lineups to experiment with going forward. And I think that's the biggest thing here, because while Rudy Gay is a good player and I enjoy watching him play, and I think he's one of the better forwards who plays defense on this team, he struggled from the field. He struggled to shoot the ball. He might have been the only one really who struggled to shoot, but he's just not used to playing 31 minutes a game. I think that was the biggest thing for him. He was there were probably times on that court when he was just out of breath. He didn't have his legs under him, and that might have been why he was missing shots. Now, if you want to start him for defensive purposes and try and get your guys out to a bit of a lead while he's out on the court, that's totally fine. I think he complements those other 4 very well, because he's going to be able to guard people that DeMar DeRozan doesn't or can't guard. And Derek White is a defender, a good defender, and he got hot last night. So there's a chance he hits shots for you. He doesn't totally torpedo your offense. And Bryn Forbes is a guy who's never really going to torpedo your offense unless he just has a really bad shooting night.
Yeah.
That's also a guy who doesn't really play defense. But that's why you have Derek White. That's why you have Rudy Gay in the game. And LaMarcus Aldridge, last night anyway, was a pretty good defender, racking up 4 blocks. So he was protecting the rim for you and kind of, helping out where other guys might have lost their man on the perimeter and he's driving into the paint. LaMarcus Aldridge was there to erase things, which was kind of nice. So I think that lineup could work, but I don't think that would be a regular lineup for this team.
Well, you brought up a good point. Rudy Gay is getting up there in years, and 31 minutes is not sustainable for the rest of the season, given what he's able to do out there in spurts and spades, especially coming off the bench. I think he needs to go back to the bench. I did like him out there in the starting 5, but I think, maybe going with somebody like Trey Lyles out there in that starting lineup instead of Rudy Gay would actually give the Spurs a better chance defensively of going against some of these upper echelon teams. Plus, that Trey Lyles is young, so he can stay out there, for sustainable minutes and help, crash the boards and be a pest out there in the paint, and probably try to keep the opposing team honest and not just letting them go to the rim at will. But one of the things that did stand out at me yesterday is the Spurs' ability to get out there on the wing. They were able to, pretty much keep the Clippers in check from beyond the arc. And not only were they able to keep the Clippers in check from beyond the arc, but the Spurs were able to knock down some three-pointers. I think at one point they went off. They were just raining threes, and that was kind of infectious to see, because you saw that one person hit a 3, and then it was just the rest of the team started following suit, and it energized them. They felt more confident out there, and you could see that they just had a different, way about them out there on the court. It's like they found their swagger, They got their mojo back is what it was. So it was one game. I'm not going to be out here saying, oh, they're going to be a totally different team from here on out. But you did like some of the things that they did. Now, hopefully they can carry that momentum going forward against the Detroit Pistons team. But Jonas, I'm going to go ahead and go to you now. I mean, what did you think about the starting five? Because I know you're going to have to get out here pretty soon. But what did you think about that starting five? Is there anybody that you would like to switch out of there? Maybe see Trey Lyles in place of Rudy Gay, or how would you go?
Well, Joe, don't forget, we've already seen Trey Lyles in the starting lineup for a good chunk to start the season. I thought that, and I didn't realize this, but looking at the breakdown right now, Rudy Gay was a starting center.
Yep.
That catches me off guard.
He's an undersized center.
NBA. Yeah, I've got the NBA points breakdown. The box score right in front of me, and they had Rudy Gay listed as center with LaMarcus listed as the power forward. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I like having Trey Lyles out there because I do think that he adds a little bit more length. You sacrifice his defense a little bit more. I think that Rudy, between the two of them, is the better defender.
I think you're right with that. I think Rudy, if you look at the stats, has been the better defender over the course of the season. Yeah.
And he's a more complete player. He's aggressive going to the rim and we saw another side of aggressive Lyles last night too.
Yeah.
Where he came off the outside on a missed shot and just slammed it back home. And that was something beautiful to see. But I would really like to see them unlock my guy, Jakob Poeltl.
Unleash Jakob.
Because when you have him and LaMarcus in the post, I just think that you can wreak havoc on teams. That's where we have a lot of small guards. You can go big against teams, and I don't know why we didn't do that enough against the Lakers. And again, another really long team, another very athletic team, forcing teams to shoot the outside shot because you just won't let them in the paint. That's what I would like to maybe see, but this is, I think, Pop's fourth or fifth different starting rotation this year. We're only just about 25 games in. Of course, I'd like to see DeJounte Murray find his way back home in that starting lineup because that means that he's going to start turning his season around. But Derek White at the starting one right now, guys, I think why he went off last night was especially if he can maintain this 3-point game, he is the most complete player out there that we would have because DeMar obviously doesn't shoot the three much. More of the slash scorer, mid-range shot, and you sacrifice on defense. Rudy Gay is complete, but he's kind of old. He's getting up there. But Derek White, I mean, geez, he could pull up from wherever he wanted to. He really liked that kind of, I don't know, what would that be, like 115 degrees on a protractor, y'all? Just right out there between not quite the corner shot. He found his spot. He loved it. And, of course, his defense that he brings, he's the most complete player. So I would like to kind of see Pop roll with this for another one. But what this really shows to me is that he's now playing his starting lineup to opponents, where at the beginning of the season it looked like he was just running the same five guys out there every night. Watching him put Rudy out there with a more athletic, not so much large, more positionless basketball team that the Clippers have, we went rather positionless too. And to match them that way, I think, led to success.
I think so as well. I think he's onto something there. I think specifically with that switch, at the point guard position, having DeJounte come off the bench and starting Derek, actually is paying some big dividends for the Spurs moving forward. You saw a little bit about that happen with the Lakers game. You saw that kind of, it was helping the team a little bit more. And I think the reason for that is that DeJounte Murray, I think he's still, because if he's on that minutes restriction, he still needs time to get himself in rhythm. It's hard to get yourself in rhythm when you have that minutes restriction. And then when he's coming off the bench right now, I think it's good for him because you don't have all these expectations thrust upon you. You can develop your game a little bit more. You can give yourself time to get in rhythm, and you get your confidence back. And we're going to probably see DeJounte return to the starting point guard position at some point in time, whether it be the next 2 games, 3 games, or what have you. But he's going to return to that starting point guard position. And by the time he does that, maybe his confidence is where it needs to be, and he'll not have to worry so much about having to produce at such a high level. I think it was a smart move by Coach Popovich, and I think it's great because it gives DeJounte time to boost his confidence. What did you think about that move at the starting point guard position, Ben?
It worked.
That it did. It
so, did. I mean, wait, what can you say? If it works, it works. You gotta keep going with it. As long as things make sense and lineups they're seeing that they throw that lineup out against makes sense. But Derek White, I really like him. I've always liked him. Even when I first did a profile on him, I liked his background. I like where he came from. I just like his game, and so he's going to be one of those dudes who's just going to go out there and do whatever he has to do to help this team win. And so I think that alone is worth starting. And not to say that DeJounte doesn't do that. He definitely does that. But some of the issues we talked about earlier where DeJounte goes out there, he tries to make things happen too often and too quickly. Yes. And again, some of that is I'm coming off an ACL tear. I want to prove I'm worth this contract I just signed. It comes from a good place. Sometimes he just has to realize that I can do all these things. I can slow my game down, or I can play at a frantic pace as long as I'm under control.
Yeah.
I think once he realizes and he does those things, he'll find himself creeping up on more minutes, and then eventually creeping up into the starting lineup. And what my hope and dreams, my very wild dreams, are that Derek White and DeJounte Murray end up starting together, and you bring Bryn Forbes and Patty Mills off the bench to be your microwave guys.
Oh man, I don't want no Patty Mills and Bryn Forbes together. That's an accident waiting to happen.
You stagger those minutes, but you want those two guys coming off your bench at some point to be your microwave guys. You bring in Patty Mills first, and you let while DeJounte's on his minutes restriction, you let him go to the bench, let Derek White play for a little bit. And so DJM gets his breather. DJM goes back in. He brings in Bryn Forbes with him. Bryn Forbes goes in for Patty or something. But basically making sure you never have Patty and Bryn on the floor at the same time. That would end in disaster. There would be just ole all the way to the rim, just to the entire game, and you can't have that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch to Jonas here because we're going to go ahead and start shutting this thing down. So I was saying, Jonas, are you a believer now? Do you think this team can win more than the 25 or 30 games that the NBA has projected?
Yeah, hands down. Again, I've got us playoffs. So what I'm not a believer in, because I got annoyed when I saw it happen again last night. This was something we hadn't seen the previous game, y'all, was the return of Marco Bellinelli.
Oh, no.
And the reduction of Damari Carroll back down to 0 minutes. Why the hell that happened, I don't know.
Because Marco made a case for himself because he had a decent game against the Lakers, but that's just a pipe dream. That's a fluke, man.
One good game.
Good game.
Everyone's back on the train.
There is no case to ever allow Marco to touch the court again this season unless you're down like 3 injuries.
Or you're up by 30 points, or you're up by 30 points with 3 minutes left to go.
Let's make sure we heard Jonas right here. Not down by 3. You are down 3 injuries.
Right. Yeah. 3 injuries.
You ain't got nobody left to throw out there
in front of him. Because it just bothers me, guys. It just bothers me. So I want to see DeMar Carroll return. And like I said, I don't think that last night was anything more than us playing to the level of competition. And we played great. We got a win. It was at home. We did, I think, probably got a couple of beneficial calls from the referees. They gave some penalties to the Clippers that shouldn't have happened. I'll take those. That's home court advantage, and that's something that should exist for every team. Every other team gets it, so why can't we? So
Amen.
I'm still calling playoffs until we're mathematically eliminated. No more Marco Bellinelli and Jakob Poeltl for MVP.
There you go. So should we? Are you
Yes.
now after you saw the light and you saw Lonnie Walker come out and have a good game against the Lakers? Shouldn't Lonnie get some minutes? You know, they should just sit Marco on the bench and give the minutes to DeMar Carroll and Lonnie Walker in that order. Have DeMar Carroll come off, then you have Lonnie Walker come out, and then the last person you should be going to would be Marco Bellinelli. I mean, do you like some Lonnie Walker?
I wanted to start the season that way, but as we've gotten to this point, guys, where a lot of San Antonio Spurs, especially Spurs Twitter, is wanting to see the youth move. Let's just send Lonnie back down to the G League. Let them build some serious chemistry. They can come up as a group next year to run the second unit and just start taking over the NBA. If Lonnie's just gonna sit on the bench all this year anyway and only see garbage time, then let him spend time with Keldon, Quinn, Luka, and Chimezi and figure out their chemistry. Allow them to put together some swagger at the G League level. You'll win a title down there because we're not going to win one this year up here, but they can win a title down there and bring that whole second unit as a wave next year off the bench. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That means that we got to get rid of us some Patty Mills and Marco Bellinelli.
They should already be gone, and we're already everybody's saying bye DeMar, bye LA, so that's fine. But if we're building towards next year, if it goes back to the G League with the intention of that is lethal.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that second wave that's coming, people need to be ready for that because this youth movement, they really have some talent out there. And you need to go to this, the Austin Spurs and go to that G League and check out some of these up-and-comers. They have a lot of stuff to show you guys, and you'll be surprised at what you're seeing out there on the court. So in closing here, Ben, thoughts about the Spurs moving forward? Anything that you'd like to add?
I would love to have Jonas's unbridled optimism for a lot of subjects in my life. That is as much optimism as he has for this team and going to the playoffs and the future of this team. I need that kind of optimism for a number of different things in my life because that is pure unbridled optimism and it is beautiful.
Yeah. I think Jonas Clark is Spurs Nation spirit animal.
He should be. Can we start a vote for that? Can we do something for that? Can we get that on like something official? Can we get that on a mandate? I don't know. What can we go? We got to go through the city of San Antonio and see what we can make happen here. That'd be fantastic.
We'll put something like JC is the Spurs spirit animal.
Love it. Hey, you know what? Get this man his Twitter avatar. Let's make it. We're gonna like put his face. We're gonna outline his face like he's Simba or something. We're gonna get Joe Garcia is gonna be superimposed on Rafiki. He's gonna be holding up Jonas
Clark.
He's Simba. he's like this is our new king.
No, he's gonna be a bat. It has to be the bat because the bats are out there at the AT&T Center. We'll just put his face on one of the bats and just hold him up by the wings.
There you go.
You could find a picture of one of the ones Manu Ginobili got.
Right.
It's like Manu Ginobili holding the bat, and it's like Jonas the bat.
There you go. I like that. We need to put it on a shirt. Make it happen, Jonas. Let's make it happen.
Amazing.
It comes from being a Browns fan, guys. That's where it all comes.
Bless your heart.
I've seen so much happen. I'm a uniquely qualified Spurs fan. Because I know what it's like to be at the bottom as well as at the top.
You're going to make us cry, Jonas. I know what it's like to be knocked down, but we get back up again.
That's right. Oh, man. This is beautiful.
Oh, my God. All right, guys. So we're closing here. Where can they find you guys on social media? We'll start with you, Jonas, since we have your lovely face on the screen. Where can they reach you on Twitter?
At Jark Clonus. on Twitter for unbridled optimism.
And maybe you should change your
Hey,
hashtag
oh,
Spurs
man.
Spirit Animal.
Oh,
You know, put it
man.
on your Twitter. You know
Oh,
how you
man.
have the bio? You know, you can put whatever you're doing, and then you can put also Spurs Spirit Animal.
That'd be awesome.
Trademarked at the end. There you go.
There you go. And Ben, where can they find you on social media and interact with you and all the great stuff that you got coming out here for Project Spurs? And also you do good things for, was it Clutch Sports, correct?
Yes, Clutch Points.
Clutch Points.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at _Boomstein. I'm writing weekly posts for Project Spurs about draft prospects. Right now, I've been writing a lot about guys in the lottery since that's kind of where their record is right now. Of course, if Jonas has his way, I won't be doing that for very much longer. I'll be writing about guys you need to find in the 20s. So
Exactly.
I'm ready for that too. But Clutch Points, just a lot of college basketball stuff, some recruiting things, some of my random thoughts. I'm actually getting ready to write something about how Feast Week is the greatest week. Well, it's really 11 days of college basketball outside of March. So very excited to write that. Hope people will read it. Just
Nice.
it's just a lot of great tournaments, a lot of matchups you don't see in the regular season. So, just stuff I love to write about, man.
Yeah, so definitely make sure you go and check all that stuff out that Ben's doing for both Project Spurs and Clutch Points as well. So you can go ahead and interact with us over at Two Shots Podcast at TWOSHOTS, spelled out, podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Yes, we have a YouTube channel. Make sure you go and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can not only see the Two Shots podcast, but also the Spurs Takeover after every Spurs game or every other Spurs game, because we can't do every single one. We got lives to live too, but yeah, you can catch that on there as well. So for Jonas Clark and Ben Bornstein, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you for watching and listening to another episode of the Two Shots podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind. We're out. Peace.